Hello, Noel Vortex here, and I'm going to read a piece I wrote a while ago in this magazine, Tunnel, Zine 2? Yeah, Zine 2, Understanding is not a point of view. I wrote an article called The Artist Engineer, which is a piece exploring the relationship between technology, art, and innovation in the 21st century. And it's also contributions from Matthew Tudor, who is one of the other writers and artists in the tool. Definition: the artist engineer is the paradigm of the artistic archetype for a new century that demands a change in methods of reflecting on ourselves and the productive processes and meaning of the art we produce. The artist engineer reforms and rearranges the world according to their desire, generated through the prism of all network and energy flows. The artist engineer takes the tools of the present to make a better world for all, to reform and restructure the elements of the universe in a manner not unlike the alchemist's world. The true artist engineer is a free agent of creativity, utilising and developing new technologies to expand the human potential for possibility and imagination, mining the corridors of the possible, intellectually, spiritually, and technologically, to create a world of symbiosis between pure art, design, and technology. Theory: not slaves to reason alone, reason arose necessarily as a phase in the history of intellectual inquiry into nature, and as a reaction to the repressive and controlling hand of ancient religion. Reason helped forge a new world in the wake of the Renaissance that led to a scientific, cultural evolution of man beyond the Dark Ages and into a world of light and knowledge. But reason alone breeds monsters. That is, an overemphasis in logic and reason to the detriment of a creative and meaningful chaos represses and makes silent an essential element of our souls and nature, namely the creative and fiery spirit of innovation. That Promethean will to power that marks all great men and women from the herd of the moral masses. We propose that reason alone cannot breed the new art, and that art indeed requires imagination and vision to progress into new and novel fields. The artist engineers must delve into themselves before they can output their visions into the mould of the earth. The importance of the visual experience to digital art. And an inner vision has been the driving force of all breakthroughs in art, from El Greco through to Van Gogh and Bacon. All great artists use the raw material of reality to reform and restructure the possible into the impossible and visionary, breaking into a world previously unimagined. The metaphysics of depths and the flesh of things unsaid and unseen. At our current juncture, we have access to unprecedented tools and materials as artists: paint, metal, computer systems, technology, paper. Increasingly, these mediums should intermingle into the newer conception of art, the unified art of creative unreason, the visionary and interconnected world of meaningful relations, a new unveiling of the word made art. The artist engineer must plunge deep into their self in order to rest out their nervous system, plug into their own nexus of nerves, and rest out the meaning of our own confusing and constantly shifting postmodern world of wires, sex, and its opposite, the controlling industrial violence of the military, corporate complex and corporo-sigilism, the creation of symbols in the service of extreme forms of consumption and capitalist monopolies, and their continuing influence on the biosphere. Any artist worth his or her salt will confront these issues. Any less is to be a servant of the corporate interests. Artists and their ideals should be seeking to dismantle and rebuild, and in my view forms the antithesis of the artist engineer, the artist producer, i.e. an artist who produces purely for commercial aims. Creating a new language of forms based in Catholic symbolism, to take religious imagery in the literal form and reinvent it in human terms, in an attempt to establish the human as the centre of the society rather than anything divine. A symbolism and structure that reshapes the realm of God as the new non-representational art, that the new spirituality of the body by a reimagining or reinvention of the spirit. The artist is a cybernetic feedback loop, Definition of cybernetics: the science of communication and control theory that concerned especially with the comparative study of automatic control systems as the nervous system and mechanical electrical communication systems. The artist in the 21st century exists in a world of information overload and the emerging information society. The question should be then, how can artists make sure that they steer their desires and will in the direction that guides whatever they will emerge from the ruins of a post-economic crash, post-9/11 world in a positive direction? We propose that we can start by embracing a constructive chaos and by becoming the cybernetic feedback loop in the flows of information that now largely dictate and guide our destinies. This means a constant reinvention, a perpetual reorganising of the collective unconscious. How does this relate to art? We must seek to create an art that reflects the informational chaos and seeks to reorganise it into a form that recrafts our current story into an order that makes sense and both reflects and directs the energetic flows of the coming information society into a systematic feedback loop of imaginative energy and information. The artist must become the loop so that he may reassemble and create new loops in the system of reality. Practical theory, the tools of the artist engineer. What fields then should the artist engineer seek to probe in search of novelty and creative technological symbiosis? To my mind, there are many, both familiar and emerging, that the artist engineer could turn their attention to create and form new ideas and methods of visual communications beyond that which has previously existed. These include, but are not limited to, the pulse of the electronic machine that underpin our network and communication tools, which increasingly dominate and dictate our times of life. To use these tools purely for creative means. Emerging virtual reality tools which can be used to create new landscapes and stories that inform our current narrative and help esteem a sense of wonder at unknown territories. Computer software that's meant to educate, entertain in equal measure. We speak of a digital method that incorporates all these technologies and more, including, of course, the most ancient, arguably effective, our visual communication tools, painting. So yeah, that was the artist engineer. I'm just going to have like a kind of brainstorming kind of afterthought on a few things. So I wrote that about a year ago now. Not really changed my mind on any of it. Still stand by what I say in it. I think essentially art does need to move into the 21st century. I think it does. Artists need to start becoming more technical in their how they implement to make more interesting art. Basically, I think a lot of art, contemporary art, is in a bit of a, you know, it's just like it's very commercial. A lot of it's extremely boring, postmodern, rehashing postmodern jokes and tropes, and I think it is due a revival. I think that revival comes from implementing technological solutions in art more. So having interesting software programs that don't do what many other people expect. There are obviously contemporary artists who are dealing in these contexts who are also quite successful as well. So there are a few artists who do this, and it's interesting. It kind of is a return to a Renaissance model, which obviously is the ideal, I think, of art. The idea of having many disciplines which cross-pollinate. That's where newness emerges from anyway. It's from how people, ideas, things mixing together, you know, are sometimes opposing and then creating new synthesis out of that. That's how newness emerges. That's literally how newness emerges in the world. So in that sense, that's kind of what I'm aiming at. I suppose why I mentioned painting at the end of it, because obviously painting is seen as a much more traditional form, and I think some people might see using more digital methods as a kind of threat to that. But in my view, that's bullshit, because painting still informs technological solutions. Like if you look at digital artists, who, you know, even 3D artists, they start off with a sketch, they start off maybe even do a painting, not usually, but it's still the fundamentals there are still a drawing. So I fail to see how that is a threat, to be honest. It's not a threat, it's just an evolution down another corridor. That's how I see a lot of art history in general. Is at times there's several different corridors going off. A lot of the times they return to the similar points. History revolves, goes round and round. I think in the minute we're kind of in an age of reactive art in a lot of ways, but also Also, in some respects, in terms of like mass popular art and not very critical art, I suppose, of society, I think that kind of art of social protest needs to come back in more of a way. It does happen in some sectors of the street art movement, when I appreciate that kind of where it happens in that kind of grassroots street art movement. But also in terms of street art, it seems some parts of it has been co-opted more commercially, so that not all street, obviously I've just mentioned, put forward to that to say that some of the most important artists working today with kind of protest art are essentially street artists, but a lot of it's been co-opted and it's become very boring kind of postmodern pop art mix, which is to me is just the most yawnsome shit ever. Like, you know, just getting like pop culture figures and subverting it a little bit. It's very, I mean, to me it's just not very, yeah, I can see it was not clever. I don't really get it. Anyway, this kind of go into more personal criticism. So what do I actually envision this, the kind of projects that artists and engineers would make? It would be interestingly a mix between the social protest but also social activism, but also actual useful things which could actually have a socially useful context and use. So for example, I'll just come up with an idea now. Say if you had like I don't know, like some kind of visual project. I'm trying to think of a visual project. Say if you wanted to demonstrate the statistics about something. Let's just take an example, wild example, representation of a group in a certain field, or a representation of a group in a place. What an artist engineer could do, which could involve art but also technology, would be to create a WebGL application in a browser, which basically takes a lot of data set, information from a data set, and then represents that data set visually, makes it so you can even, like, for example, you could do it in a virtual reality setting so that someone could travel through that data set. It could be told in a narrative form. I mean, this is really, like, especially game design as well, actually. So I jumped around a bit now, but I think game design in terms of art is completely so unmined. Some artists have been doing it, obviously, for a few years. But like, a long time. So I've got a new book on new media art. Artists have been doing it in one way or another for a while, but the potentials and like the accessibility of it now is so much easier. You've got thousands, hundreds of game design tools you can find: Unreal Editor, Unity, not to mention a load of WebGL, kind of like free game design tools, and some paid for. But it makes it so much easier now just to do that stuff that there's not really any excuse. And I think a lot of artists are obviously scared of it because they think, oh, I have to do programming, you have to do this. Well, I could do it, so just do it. It's not that. It's just making excuses for yourself a lot of the time, I think. Same with like technological types as well. Sometimes they just like they have a very kind of nose down approach at art, and it's like I get frustrated sometimes because there's not enough cross pollination going on. And sometimes it just feels like it's just trying to preach to an audience that hasn't yet emerged. So that's kind of frustrating. You know, because it's just like annoying sometimes to see that people still don't get it. It's not that difficult. All it's saying is just like, if you want to actually kickstart a new renaissance, which is what this new century needs essentially. We've got big problems now with the environment, we've got big problems with energy, we've got big problems with the potential of AI, what that's going to do if that actually comes to anything, fruites to anything. We've got big problems with governance even. Now, like, people will look at you like you're strange if you say these things need artistic interpretations, but they do. They're the biggest questions of our age. I mean, the questions of our age are more now about management and self-management, and how do we actually create an age, because we live in a very prosperous age, and let's not forget this, but yeah, people who have access to those resources and who have control those resources and the power and the information and all the rest of it, it's a small elite. That has to be readdressed. These are all questions that artists have always asked, from Dadaists to the Surrealists to, I mean, not so much the expressionists because that was a more subjective feeling art, but Dada was a complete protest, anti-art movement. Surrealism, again, all kind of raving communists back in the day. And I'm not saying that's the way forward either, because it definitely isn't. Communism's a dead ideology. I think the sooner people recognise that, the better. It's dead. Marx had some very good ideas. We should kind of take some of his critique of capitalism, I think, and build upon it and modernise it. But people who grasp onto Marxist Leninist ideas are just need to get the program. That is dead. It was a critique of industrial society a long time ago. We live in different times. It's time to modernise that kind of thought stream, I think. Art has a place in that. The artist engineer has a place in that. And that's why I wrote this piece of called The Artist Engineer. It's partly I try and live up to my ideal of the artist engineer. I do it in varying degrees, certainly not all the time. Sometimes, I mean, I'm going through a bit of a patch at the minute of just unproductive meandering, but that's part of it, really, because you have to have a lot of time, I think, just to gather your ideas together, and just the fact that I've just been a bit like down recently. But that's by the by. So I think I'll just end this here, but that's been quite an enjoyable ramble. So yeah, if you've got any thoughts on what I've just been talking about, I know I've not gone into a huge amount of depth. I could go into more in terms of like the postscript kind of like talking with regard to. But yeah, leave me comments if you've got any, if you feel like it. Make them at least relevant. I'm kind of tired of people saying that I look like a Jew, or that which I don't even care about really, but it's kind of annoying because it's not true. Or people just being abusive without any backing it up with anything. It's kind of pointless. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of a negative note then. Thanks for listening. And yeah, leave some comments if you have any, I guess. If any constructive thoughts. Cheers. Bye.